Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, and I want to apologize. I'm growing a beard for that 150th anniversary of the county thing. Competition is supposed to go till September 15th. This is a week, and I don't think I'm going to make it. Our guest is Senator Jim Mathias today. First question, Senator, did you ever grow a beard?
I have not. Go, Greg. I'm a clean-shaven man.
That's what I've always been, but anyway. Welcome back. The session's over. It's summertime already. We should have had you on by now. So how was the session here for 2017?
Well, it was terrific. It's the best ever, and we could talk about that a little bit. But one of the most important things that we have done was continue to work with our constituents when they pick up the phone and call, certainly when they come up. You know, we are just very rich in not only Maryland history, but United States history in Annapolis. As you well know, that's where George Washington resigned as the commander-in-chief and all. And to be able to feel it, see it, look at that manuscript that we have preserved there, it's really important. But the best thing is we continue our democracy and republic as we go forward. So that's what we do. And not only the 90 days, it is summertime almost.
Right.
And but you know, the 90 days we're there, we do our legislative work. But 365 days of the year, we do the really important work, and that's constituency service. And we're out and about at different events, and people call, and they have someone in their family that's disabled. They have an issue with the Holly Center that we're trying to provide a bright future for. So that's what we do round the clock, round the year. And I'm just thankful to God, to our constituents, for affording me that opportunity, and ask them for their continued support.
You were everywhere, which makes you very knowledgeable about everything that's going on, because you go to every community event. Wherever I go, you're always there.
Well, look, this is what I do, and I'm very thankful to have that. And regardless, well, who would ever thought that a boardwalk guy, a pinball machine guy, would have the opportunities that I've had? And so I'm very fortunate. But let's talk a little bit about everywhere and our freedom. And as you well know, some of the bills that you think are going to be the easiest to pass, sometimes are the hardest. Those who gave it all are POW, MIA folks that gave their life and have still yet, whether it's been Vietnam, Korea, World War II, to be accounted for. I put in a bill 5+ years ago to require that POW, MIA flag to be flown on state buildings.
Right.
I am happy to report I would get that thing moving, and all of a sudden we just couldn't get it any further. I'm happy to report we passed that bill this year.
That's great.
2017, the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend. I stood with Governor Hogan as he signed that bill into law. That POW MIA flag will fly every day on most state buildings. There are a few that architecturally can't accommodate it, but you know, you hear never forget.
Right. That
is a absolute demonstration that we here in Maryland will never forget. And every day, whether you say I'm everywhere, I'm out on the street, and I can hear what people think about their politics.
Yeah.
You are print and video media. You can bring us in, and we can tell you what we think about our politics. We're afforded that privilege because of the men and women who fought for us and gave it all. So I salute all my colleagues that supported that bill, Governor Hogan for signing that bill, and as that flag is mounted on those state buildings, I am most pleased. And we will not forget, you know, else we don't forget the inspiration that they provided for that next generation. Today, while we're here in this studio, men and women are out defending our country.
Yeah.
Again, we had another incident over the weekend. So we could just sit and say that we thank them for their service. So, you know, and then we come back. Another issue, you look back a little bit, you have to learn from your past. And schools started going back into session way too early, way too early. And when you're a family and for one reason or another, you weren't able to vacation in a part of the summer, you kind of wanted to be able to wait till the end. Next thing you know, the children are back at school. we were able to work. We started working with the comptroller, and he asked if I would put in a task force bill, I guess about 4 years ago or so, that would look at the feasibility of school after Labor Day. We did. The task force passed it heartily, 12-3, I believe. I put the bill in 2 sessions. And again, another bill that you would think would make a lot of sense. We couldn't move that bill. But what we were able to do, I went to Governor Hogan within a matter of a couple weeks. Well, actually, when he was Governor Hogan-elect, he came to the press conference about school after Labor Day. So right after he was elected in the 2014 election, they bring us over, some of the delegates and some of the senators, kind of a handful at a time in the early parts of the session, just to sit and see what's on your mind, you know. And when I had the opportunity to talk to Governor Hogan, I said, you know, Governor, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Governor Schaefer did this by executive order in some capacity. And he called his Deputy Chief of Staff, Jeannie Hadaway, over and said, Jeannie, Senator Mathias said he thinks that Governor Schaefer may have done this by executive order. Let's take a look at that. Well, of course, you know the rest of the story. Whereas we worked 2 years to get that bill passed, and we gave all good reasons why: economic opportunity as well as family time, value together, and making good, smart sense. Just wasn't a bill that legislatively, it may have taken 5 or 6 years, like the POW-MIA flag took, but we stayed the course, and I was able to set the seed with Governor Hogan. He and I worked, and as you know, last year, just before Labor Day, we stood on the boardwalk. And I've signed some bills in many places, but not signed one on the boardwalk before. And that felt good to have the governor there sign that bill. So you know, it's great for families, and it's not just about Ocean City. It's about Western Maryland. It's about an Oriole game, a late season Oriole game in Baltimore. It's about Southern Maryland, where our real roots are. So you know, throughout our entire state, it's about a trip over to Washington, D.C. When I talked about the rich history in our state capital. It's about walking the streets of Annapolis. When you're able to do that in the last 5, 7, 10 days of summer, and know that you're able to spend time as a family together, and you're able to generate that economic opportunity for business, it was a smart bill both ways. So we were able to defend that bill. When we say, you know, if you remember that as soon as we did it, we're going to overturn that. There were some folks that said, we're overturning that bill. I worked throughout the year, and when we got into session, to ward that off, to make sure that that did not happen. And you know how that happens? By building relationships and compromise. I know there'll be some things that we talk about here that started out one way, and some members of our community have an opinion about it, but I was able to mitigate that to make it a better situation. But they do that because you're there working with people and building those relationships. I'm very fortunate and grateful for the opportunity to be in there. Now, you know, I've only been in the Senate. This is my 7th year in the Senate, coming to the end of my 2nd term. So it's not like I've really not stayed in any one place too long. I've had the good fortune to serve publicly for about 26 years. But we're able to get in, get our job done, build relationships, and move on to a place where we can continue to serve more people. But that's how that is done. It's done by relationships, and we were able to fully explain why this was important to us. So right off the bat, we were able to get the POW-MIA flag passed after several years. We were able to defend school after Labor Day. When you look back here, it's Wycomico County, and the things we've been able to do here. Got a lot of excitement going on in Salisbury. Mayor Jake Day and the City Council, we were all together with a press conference, kind of a town hall meeting with Governor Hogan, Comptroller Francho, where they announced $1 million for infrastructure.
It was a great event.
Absolutely. You know, that's what communities are about. It's about bringing everybody together. The one good thing with me is it's not been about Democrats or Republicans or independents. It's been about Eastern Shore people. It's been about our needs. It's been about the opportunities that exist and thrive right here in Salisbury and in Wycomico County, and being able to bring the legislative tool to work for us. So we're looking at that. Great energy here. You know, Shorebird Stadium. They were at a moment in time where they were right there. Perhaps the lease renewal was a question. And it's a great asset. And they needed monies to be able to bring that facility up to speed. We thought the money was in the budget during the transition with former Governor O'Malley and into Governor Hogan. And look, there's always transition. Next thing you know, we get right out a couple months in the session a few years ago. That money wasn't in there, but yet that lease renewal was still being discussed, and we were able to come to the fore, get that money reinstated in the budget. But then it was in there last year, and then again it wasn't in there again this year.
Right.
So the last $1 million, and it's easy to sit here on camera and talk about $1 million or this or that. To realize $1 million when it's finite, monies are finite, is tough to do. There's a lot of hands grabbing for that money in a budget, and we have to make sure that we earn the reputation, respect, and the relationships to bring those monies back home here. The disparity grant here in Wycomico County, we were able to accomplish that. When you look at the things, you're right in the middle of the discussion. You remember how long they talked about wanting to have an elected school board here.
Right.
And that was really sort of, let's say, a non-starter in so many people's eyes. But I said to them, look.
And people were mad at you because you kind of put a kibosh on that.
Well,
you delayed it a little bit.
If you recall.
To do the right thing.
Right, precisely. With all due respect, it wasn't, the kibosh. It was, let's have these public hearings. Yeah. It's a diverse community, and I wanted to make certain that as we move forward, that we were able to have those opinions and that voice. That's the most important thing, that voice. And this county council did exactly that. One year the bill came prematurely, and with all due respect, it wasn't.
They were rushing it.
Right, they were. And look, they were respectfully new. It was a new council, and I'm not here to find fault. But I've worked with all of them, and I worked with all of them very well. We were able to understand one another as soon as we came back, and I took the slings and the arrows. That's true. You're right. But we came back in the fall that year, late summer and fall. We had those public hearings around, and I did what I said. I put the bill in. I heartily supported it. That bill became law, and we're off now to the type of representation that the people of Wycomico County.
And you were at every one of those meetings.
Yeah, I was. It's true.
Yeah.
Again, it's about relationships. One of our most important industries here, agriculture. We were able to, again this year, another bill that took 2 years to pass, and that's a live weight haul bill. In our neighboring states, they allow more weight on a tractor trailer bed.
Right.
When we're riding around here, the chickens going to processing, they have allowed, and they found that it made good sense. It doesn't contribute to accidents or road wear and tear. They were able to up the weight. I was able to do that last year, put the bill in, but we couldn't get it passed until this year. Now, I know I don't want to get into all the metrics of it, but we can now haul more chickens to process.
Not a glamorous bill, but something that's going to help the poultry integrators for sure.
You hear all the time, you heard about regulations, and we'll talk about that in a moment here, and how regulations were causing businesses in Maryland to rethink Maryland.
Right.
How the taxes were causing business in Maryland to rethink. And look, I've been right at the forefront of this conversation. We want to make sure that businesses think of Maryland. We want them to stay in Maryland. We want them to come to Maryland. So that's what we were able to do with this bill. I want to make sure that regardless of whether it's the integrators or the family farms, that they know they have a future. Some of the anxiety that was felt when they had the Hudson suit a few years ago. And I know the family personally. I can only say, I don't want that anxiety in the minds of our farmers. I don't want that concern in terms of our integrators thinking, we're looking at growth this year of X amount of millions of dollars and X amount of growth. Should we grow in Delaware? Should we grow in Virginia? Should we grow in Arkansas? I want them to be able to pick up the phone and say, we're going to grow right here in Maryland. And that's what we do. So as you said, may not be glamorous, but you know what it is?
Yeah.
It's assurance that there is going to be a future. I just want to say, sometimes, my mother would say to me, God bless her soul, eating bread is soon forgotten. And a lot of things happen along the way. And if you want to remember the most current part of the thought, you can do that. But, we went through a very challenging economic time here in Maryland.
Yeah.
And as did our whole country. And, holding the whole thing together.
Right when you entered the Senate was when it all went bad.
It did.
Yeah.
And, actually, when I went into the House. But, I had good fortune, and not talking about that, but I had good fortune as the mayor. For the 10 years I was there, our assessable base grew from $4 billion to $12 billion. We increased our visitorship, and everything was great. God bless Bennett. Bennett passed away. I get the call. I'm asked, would you please come and continue Bennett's service? I talked to my late wife, Kathy. She said, if that's what you want to do. And off we went. Well, no sooner than we got there, that dark cloud came over us, and we were in this recession. Worst economic time since the Great Depression. So then that administration had to do what it had to do, and they made their choices. Now, as we stay the course, as we do as Marylanders and as great Americans, we stayed the course. As they say, the sun will come out tomorrow, and you started to see economic recovery happen. And when we got out on the other side, we started to look at some of these fees and regulations and the like that were not necessary anymore. And one of them was with regard to this best available technology, was making it very difficult to build new homes. And so with regards to putting in best available technology outside the critical area.
Yeah.
Governor Hogan repealed that last year. He had a panel that went around the state and looked at the things that were onerous. And that was one of the things that they repealed. Some folks from the environmental community rushed forward to replace it by statute. And what we were able to do was really, really mitigate that bill. And ultimately, we brought it down that if there was no money, you weren't required to do it. We looked at failing systems in the critical area, new systems in the critical area. And then once you got outside to step 3 and step 4, the monies weren't there.
Right.
You weren't have to be compliant. When the bill left, and that's what good negotiations do. That's what being effective does. And when that bill left over the Senate, went to the House, the bill failed in the House completely. So the governor's repeal stands. It stands. We were able to mitigate the enforcement and the mandate tremendously. But the good news is, again, that comes from being effective. So now I'm still trying to work. As you well know, in 2012, we passed I was a vote for the bill, the sprinkler bill. You've heard about the sprinkler bill in residential.
I'm in favor of it,
right.
and everyone tells me I'm wrong, but I believe that it's a good idea.
Well, I don't want to talk. It is a good idea, and I'm a life member of the Ocean City Volunteer Fire Company and all. But I will say to you, I've been sadly to fatal house fires, and all I could say to you is there's not been a loss of life in a sprinkle building.
Right.
Now, without talking about the merits, I understand that the reality of if you put the septic costs and the sprinkler costs together, it could be an inhibitor for small first ownership home construction. We got the bill moving out of the Senate 2 years ago, got it over to the House. Unfortunately, it didn't move in the House. The House sponsor this year, Cherie Sample Hughes, had a tough early part of the session with her health, and we're going to go back again. We're working with the Department of Housing and Community Development, and I'm hopeful, just as we have been very successful with Governor Hogan with school after Labor Day.
Right.
Been very successful, to go back to the ag for a moment, with Governor Hogan being able to repeal those onerous phosphorus management tool regulations that we had prone, and on the first day of his administration he repealed. Been very successful with Governor Hogan. If you recall, I put that third baseband crossing study.
Yes.
The next piece is the federal environmental impact study that's required. Got it out of the House and had a heck of a time moving it in the Senate. And the governor took it last year as an initiative and funded it himself, which I'm very pleased. I just had my first grandchild born this session, Christian Alexander, and I'm hopeful that when he's 16, he'll be one of the first ones that's going to be able to drive across that new baseband. That type of infrastructure, besides commitment, it takes time to do. So I'm hopeful that with the sprinkler bill, I'll be able to continue to work with Governor Hogan and his administration, and we can find some common ground. If not done by legislation, then we can do it in a regulatory way or in a budgetary way to bring some monies first-time home buyers and new construction. So these are the kind of things that take time to do. These are the type of things that we're able to do. When I look at some of my initiatives that are really kind of driven by my life experience, and I've already referenced God Bless Kathy.
Right.
I've been very, who would ever know that long before she was diagnosed with her breast cancer, she became involved with the American Cancer Society, and who would ever know what life has in store.
Right.
And as you know, God bless her soul, her fate, and God bless Cheryl Matresic. We just lost Cheryl, 52 years old, another beautiful woman in Ocean City. Who knows what's in store? You make good decisions for your health and all. But as we learn right now, again, as our men and women are out there defending our freedom, we have men and women researchers, health folks in researching health that are just learning stuff about our health that we never knew before. They're hunkered down behind these microscopes and they, oh, look at this. And we want to make sure that as a state, we're there to bring those things to people affordably and quickly. And let's talk about a couple of bills. 3D mammography.
Right.
Very important. It's called a tomogram. And it has a more vivid reveal of what's going on inside of perhaps that mass, that lump that may be. We all know early detection when it comes to cancer is absolute best step that you could take is early detection. 3D mammography is something that's come on the scene in the last year or two and gives that reveal, shows those additional slices of that breast tissue. So you can tell much earlier on. Well, insurance companies, they're not real quick to want to, cover things. And so you had your regular mammogram when an oncologist said, something's not right there. Let's take a closer look. And it was a mammogram. Let's say you would have a $30 copay. When your oncologist, for a variety of reasons, family history, breast density, or whatever it may be, says, no, we need to look closer. We need that 3D, that tomogram. Well, the insurance companies say, well, that's a $100 copay.
Right.
That money is significant in many, many people's lives. So we were able to put in a bill, and we got it passed, that requires parity now, mammograms as well as 3D tomograms. And again, we'll give a much better reveal, a much earlier detection, and much better health. And not only just in women, breast cancer affects men as well.
Right.
So, life history and some of the legislative work that we do. Jimmy Carter, I just saw on the news this morning. He was a surprise guest on a flight somewhere yesterday in our country. And the good news is he's alive.
He's cured.
He was stage 4 melanoma.
Yeah.
And in his particular state, another insurance prohibition that required failed first therapy to happen before best available technology.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about clinical trials. I'm talking about technology and drugs that have been proven to work by the FDA and all the diligence is necessary. However, in certain states, insurance companies said, you can't go right. That's stage 4 cancer. Any time of cancer, time is your most valuable asset. But in stage 4, to be able to say no, you have to go through these traditional protocols to happen. That came to my attention. We were able to get that bill passed this year that takes that fail first right out of Maryland, takes it right out of Maryland law when it comes to insurance. So, I have another bill next year. I'll just be brief about. And many young adults are diagnosed with cancer every year in Maryland and throughout the United States. And when they are successful, they may have very aggressive radiation, they may have very aggressive chemotherapy, but unfortunately it leaves their reproductive system harmed.
Right. And
when the time comes for them to think about families, they are now impaired. Insurance companies won't cover that. So I put that bill in this year. We're working on the financial aspects of that bill. So you have life, whether it's on Beach in Ocean City.
Right.
I've lived there 45 years. Looking at that growth we talked about, when the mayor and council comes and say we want to build that next piece of the Ocean City Convention Center, 30,000 square feet.
That's going to be great.
We were able. They got Maryland Stadium Authority. It is going to be great, and they got Maryland Stadium Authority approval. We were able to work, particularly on the Senate side, to get those monies in. It's a $30 million project. The state is a partner, and also the state is also a partner in the operational loss. But we were able to get those monies in, phased in over 3 years. This year, some of the design monies recaptured, $500,000 next year, some additional money, and then that third year, the balance of those monies to build that project out. So, so whether it's being a former mayor and city council person that knows the tools that a community needs, looking over here to a community and looking at the forward growth here of Salisbury, or down, look at Warwick Community College.
Yeah.
I want to applaud Wycomico. I want the council members that talked about that last piece of bridge funding for tuition.
Yeah.
Smart. Somerset County started looking at that. Dr. Hoy.
You helped him with that, right?
We did.
Yeah.
Dr. Hoy looked at that, and Somerset is a struggle. It's a struggle. They're one of the most impoverished counties in the state, and we need to make sure that we can bring affordance to the best reasonable manner to the citizens of Somerset, to provide them an opportunity. And our community colleges do that. We were able to go ahead and we put in a bill this year, and it looked like it was going to be tough sledding. We had the hearing, and after the hearing, when they came out, I called over the governor's office. I asked for his chief education legislative person that they be kind enough to come over. They did. They met with Dr. Hoy and the president of Somerset County and all, Dr. Gaddis.
Right.
And they said I had to go back to committee. And later that night I got called. They said, Senator, we think that went very, very well. Well, it went great. When the supplemental budget came out, guess what? The money was in there to start that program. I just was at Dr. Capelli's retirement the other day on Saturday, 33 years with Warwick Community College. But you know what they told me the other night? Last year, I think they said last year there was 39 students at Warwick from Somerset.
Right.
90 already, because of this scholarship program. 90 already have applied for the scholarship. Now, look at the effect that you have on people. Also, there was a disparity in the monies with small community colleges. Our Western Maryland colleges seemingly got more. We were able to work very closely, Senator Reddy and I. A lot of these bills are bipartisan bills. I work very, very well. I don't see Republicans and Democrats. I see the Eastern Shore. I see rural Maryland. I see people that you can build relationships with. But we were able to put in a bill that reestablished the funding formula for small community colleges like Warwick. And as a result of that bill, we were able to bring an additional $430,000 annually of funding to Warwick Community College. Community colleges only get their funding from three places: the respective county, the student tuition, and the state. And every time it's either not affordable for the county or the state, really the burden comes down on the student with that tuition. We all know about tuition debt and all that.
Yeah.
We're working practically very hard to reduce that. But what we were able to do is bring some additional revenue to our community college here, to allow the people of Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset with regards to that $430,000, but also with the supplemental monies for the scholarship program for Somerset. So that's just a touch of some of the things that we were able to do. I got a whole list here.
We only have a minute left.
Oh my! So I'll be quiet.
How can people get a hold of you if they want to give you a piece of their mind?
Well, clearly I'll give them my cell number, 443-497-0911. And today's world is all about the internet.
Yeah.
And James, James, Mathias, Mathias, at senate.state.md.us. I have a website, jimmathias.com, JIMMATHIAS.com. I have a Twitter at Sen, S-E-N, Jim, J-I-M, Mathias, M-A-T-H-I-A-S, at Sen Jim Mathias. And, and I'm on it, man. But please, this is how it works. We work together. We have a lot of great things to work together for. And again, most importantly, I want to thank our constituents for being there and supporting me. I want to ask them for their continued support. And please join me in our endeavor to make the Eastern Shore, the Lower Eastern Shore, Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset a great place to live, work, and play.
He's our state senator, Jim Mathias. We're thrilled to have him here today. Thanks for being here, Jim.
Absolutely, you too.
Thank you.
Have a great summer.
Thank you. I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.